What's up, photography world? Josh Rogasso here from the Shutter School, and in today's video I've got some very helpful website advice straight from the mouth of brides and grooms on the internet, and also I'm going to discuss how not to react to advice. So this post was on Reddit. A bride decided to share some advice from her shopping experience, and there were some very helpful tips. I'm going to go over those tips and see what we can learn together and some of my reaction to it, and then also a lesson that other photographers shared by how they negatively responded and what you need to do in order to constantly get better. Okay? So first off, just because a bride shares advice doesn't mean we have to take it 100% golden. You could take it with a grain of salt. It's one bride's perspective. However, it is definitely helpful to always listen to customers. Alright, so she shared some advice about her experience shopping for a wedding photographer, and then there was actually several other brides that commented and basically sharing the same advice. So there really is, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 brides, I can't remember how many responded, that were reaffirming a lot of the things that she said. So just because she said it doesn't mean you have to take it 100% and totally change your business, but it is something to consider. Also, this advice isn't just for wedding photographers. I think anybody who is shopping for any type of photography might experience some of these similar things. So anyway, let's get into a little bit about what she said. A bride's perspective to new photographers. So I'm just going to kind of paraphrase her post. She says, I hope I don't come across too strong-toned, but I notice this a ton on many photographers' websites. And I feel that sometimes hearing from a customer perspective things that they like or dislike helps you formulate your business strategy as a whole, I hope. So she's clearly trying to be helpful. She's not being snobby. She's afraid of being like snotty by saying, hope this is not too strong-toned. Anyway, so investment pricing, this is kind of one of her biggest quips that caused debate, was that please don't call your service prices an investment. It's tacky and it does not make you sound upscale or more important anyway, etc., etc. It's a service charge. She feels like when you call it an investment that it's just like you're trying to sound like you're not charging them money. So a lot of photographers do something like that, I think, to get away from the idea that you're expensive. And she says she found it, as a bride, she found it extremely off-putting and did not book a single vendor who had that on her website. Now, I could see that maybe it's a little bit overacting to say I won't book anybody who says it, but it is interesting to take into account if people don't like that word. And I don't know if everybody feels that way or if it's just one bride. So that was one that a lot of photographers had pushback on. Totally reasonable. If you feel like investment works for you, that's fine. I use pricing just because, to me, I didn't want to sound like I was trying to sound too pretentious by saying investment. So to me, it kind of had that vibe, but I don't think everybody would feel that way. I think people that shop for luxury items are used to stuff being priced, the words being something other than just pricing. So you can go either way on that. The second main piece of advice was not listing your prices on your website. She had a problem with. So she says, also list your prices or I'm not wasting any more time. If they vary, put the baselines and note that each event varies. Okay, so basically she says she wants to at least know the range to know what the ballpark is. She says, if I went on a site and couldn't find even a sample pricing of services in under a minute, I went on to another vendor. Now here's where I think is the biggest piece of advice. Okay, I agree. When I'm shopping, I hate when I can't find the price. This weekend, I was looking at campers for my family, trying to look for a camper, have no idea what I can afford, or no idea what I'm looking for, and I'm walking through the lot, no idea what anything's priced. So it's hard for me to even compare. Like, I can look at one camper and it seems super fancy, and I can assume it's way out of my price range, and then to find out later that I could have afforded it, and that's the one I would have went with. Or I could be wasting my time looking at one that looks average, and only to find out later that it's way out of my price range. So it's very hard for people to shop and feel safe shopping if they don't know what the price is. So I think this is a big takeaway, a big helpful piece of advice, that you do need to be listing some type of pricing on your website, just to not turn away clients. And there was several brides that chimed in and said, yes, this is a big turnoff. If I didn't see pricing on the website at all, I didn't contact them. I assumed they're too expensive, etc. Or they were just flat out annoyed that they felt like you're wasting your time. One quote was that they didn't want to have to email you just to wait another week to find out. They want to know right away. And I read a book on sales a while back from a guy who, I think he was in real estate sales, but one of his biggest takeaways was people cannot make the decision to move forward unless they have the key pieces of information, and price is one of the major pieces of information. Now, some of the dilemma for me and some of the pushback, I guess, on that advice is you don't want to necessarily have your full pricing sheet on your website. Now, I tried that in the past. Just from a customer service perspective, I feel like that's the best thing. Just have your prices out there completely so that they can peruse it and be done with it. However, from a conversion point of view, it felt like it was hurting me. And I've heard that from other people. One photographer commented on this that having their full pricing hurt them because customers don't reach out because like, I got what I need, and they don't email you. I do get the whole like feeling sleazy that I'm just holding back the information so that you'll reach out to me, but at the same time I gotta stay in business, and if people don't reach out to me, I'm losing out chances on sales. So I have heard of stories of a bride maybe passing on a photographer because she got the prices, and then interviewing another photographer who charged more and ended up booking the more expensive photographer because they got a meeting with them and they were able to sell them and convince them. So even my sister, I think I sent her a referral who was at X price, and then that was, she found out, she thought that was too expensive, so she never even contacted her. Then she met with another photographer and booked like 20% more than that. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't think you would spend that much money on a photographer compared to what she had said before. And so completely having your full price list might have clients not following through with you and not giving you a chance to sell. So you kind of got to find that balance. I think having a good ballpark range, they'll still want to contact so that they can know if you're in their range and they can afford you, is a good idea. And then they contact you, then you can give them the full details. I've heard from other photographers advising that, you know, you want to be able to explain your value before they can determine it by looking at your full price list. So as a conversion point of view, from actually converting clients, I do think having a nugget for them to have to contact you will help. But definitely don't be too withholding, and definitely don't bait them along. Like, I've had some photographers advise like pricing is the last thing you give them, and they'll have like 5 email contacts before they give the pricing. You might be turning people off by then. So you kind of got to find the balance for you. However, seeing that many brides annoyed with not being able to find pricing on your website is definitely a good piece of information. All right, next thing. She says basically, so this is good from a conversion point of view, this next piece of advice. The 3 things I want to see on a website are your portfolio, your contact info, and your prices, and that's it. Now, you definitely want to have more information than that, I believe, but it is helpful to know that really when people are shopping in the first stage, they're trying to filter, okay? People don't want to spend an hour filtering. They want to be in and out. They want to know, okay, I pulled up your website, like the pictures, I can afford you, I want to get in touch with you. And that's probably the thought process that most brides are going with. Then, once they narrow it down beyond filtering, that's where the more thorough information is going to come in. So I do believe in having a big long about page, even though most couples won't read the entire about page. But when it's time to book you and they go, okay, it's between Josh and Sally across the town, which one am I going to pick? They're going to spend an hour looking at your stuff. So once it's final decision time. But the filtering time, you want to make it as easy as possible to get that information. So I think that's a good piece of advice. But what she also says is what I don't want to see on your website is pop-ups and stuff that takes forever to load, having to search just for the 2 things. Yeah, so having too much distracting things on your website, definitely none of the annoying marketing gimmicks with like pop-ups and chatbots and stuff like that is what I think she's referring to. And last one, she says, call or text me back. If it's the weekend, I think every bride knows to chill out because you're focusing on weddings, but it really helps to know that we can get a hold of you for any last-minute changes or questions, etc. Even just a hello, I got your email, and I'll follow up when I have a minute. A lot of people got offended by this on the board, which is bringing up the second half of this talk. But I totally agree. You're in a customer service industry. The faster that you respond, the more people feel valued. Now, it's not a judgment call that you didn't respond right away or you took 24 hours, because you are a solopreneur. You are busy, and it is hard, I know, to follow up quickly. That doesn't change the fact that the quicker you follow up, the better service you're providing, and the more likely you are going to convert. So there's no reason to be, defensive about this. A lot of photographers on there were defensive. So one photographer mentioned, Sunday is like my off day, and I'm not going to be working, and blah, blah. Totally wrong approach. Now, you have every right to take 24 hours. You have every right to take 48 hours. You have every right to take a week. You have every right to do whatever the heck you want. Okay? But from the shopper's perspective, they want to feel served, and the better that you can serve people, the more likely you convert. A lot of photographers actually gave it, so that brings me into kind of the second half of this, is how not to act as a wedding photographer. I find that way too many photographers are way too snobby, and we're going to get into that in a second. Here is a bride, and several brides, giving good advice on what they thought. She didn't have to take time out of her day to share this advice. So Maybe we can learn from it, maybe we can't. That's up to you to decide. However, this having an entitled attitude is definitely the wrong way to approach your business. If you have this entitled attitude, like, how dare people question whether I call investment? How dare they expect me to respond so quickly when I'm busy, blah, blah, blah. If you have that attitude, the odds of you being a successful customer service business is going to be much lower. You're not going to learn, you're not going to adapt. Now, if you're amazing and you found other ways to market, you might be able to survive despite that, but that attitude is not going to help you. All right, so in general, I was kind of taken back. There was a couple really snobby responses that blew me away. I'm like, seriously, people, don't you realize you're in a customer service business? How are you talking like this and acting like this? In all fairness, several photographers gave some good responses and were saying, I agree and I try to do this. Here's some, because they have an open mind and are listening and they want to be successful, they're saying, well, here's what I would do to try to respond faster, and gave good advice. That's what having that positive, non-entitled mindset does for you, is it allows you to problem solve and actually improve. So just a couple things. Do not be a snobby photographer. Do not say things like this. Take advice when you can. If it doesn't fit you and you still think your way is right, great. But here, just some examples like that were discouraging to me of being snob tags. Okay, don't be a snob tag. Like one photographer said, I wouldn't want to photograph a wedding because the bride disliked the word investment. Several people made comments like that. Like, just because the bride didn't like the word investment, they felt like the bride was a super snob and they want to work with them. Okay, you don't really know people. You want to meet with them and talk to them before you decide you don't want to work with them. A couple people commented how they're probably lower budget, which is another snobby way of looking at things. Another person this is one of the more extreme ones. This post is exactly why I'm considering getting out of weddings. I've been a photographer for almost 20 years, and the demands of brides nowadays are really getting to be ridiculous. And wrote a big long post about how obnoxious it was. Really? How could you be more entitled than that? A bride took time out of her day to give advice on your website. If you don't like it, fine. But really, you wouldn't want to work with somebody who said, please show me your pricing on your website so I can find out if I can afford you? I feel it's a little excessive. And I think that's the mindset that holds you back and prevents you from being successful. Another person said, if you're not in the veterinary industry, I think it's honestly really ballsy to give business advice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You sound impossible to please. So obviously this person's super offended that somebody criticized something about their business indirectly. And here's the number one rule about learning from advice, is you can't be defensive. Okay, it's very hard to do. It's easier said than done. I love getting critiqued, and I want people to be tough on me because I know that's the best way to learn. But still, even when I get critiqued occasionally, I'm like, I have the urge to say, yeah, but you didn't know that wedding was so hard to shoot, but the light was terrible, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Okay, you can have excuses or you can have results. So big takeaway from the video is listen to advice when you get it, and also try to make your website easy to give brides the information that they want. And if you do that, you'll have more people contacting you, and you'll survive the filtered process to hopefully get into the sales process. Okay, so get that info out there for them, and don't be a snob tag. All right, see you in the next video.